paint particles were round. When paint is sprayed from an aerosol can, the round particles flatten when they hit a surface like wood. When the paint dries, it creates a film-like covering. But if the spray paint hits a fiber, it reacts differently.
If these spheres dry around nothing, they just retain that shape, that is, they're spheres. However, if they come in contact with a fiber, then what happens is capillary forces cause the ends of the sphere, which starts out like this, to draw out where they come in contact with the fiber.
Scientists performed an electron probe microanalysis to identify the elements in the paint.
Every element that's in there has its own X-rays that come off. There are different wavelengths. And we collect these different X-rays at the different wavelengths or different energies. And from their energy or their wavelength, we can tell what elements are present in the sample.
The components were titanium, lead, and iron. An infrared microspectrophotometer, which looks more like a computer than a microscope, determined the paint's molecular composition. The results are charted on a graph, and scientists learned that the paint was an oil-based alkyd with a Prussian blue pigment. Investigators now wanted to know where these mysterious microscopic blue paint particles came from. And they also needed to know how they got onto Marlene Miller's living room carpet 24 years earlier.
It's summer, which means that millions of people are on the roads, heading to and from vacation. Seeing that check engine light come on can cause major anxiety. It's never a good feeling, especially if your car's no longer covered under a warranty. And if your car is out of warranty, that light can signal expensive car repairs. This is where CarShield comes in. CarShield picks up where your warranty left off, offering vehicle service plans that can cover expensive repairs, like your engine, transmission, and AC, which could save you thousands of dollars. Here's how it works. When your car needs repairs, use your favorite mechanic or dealership, and CarShield pays them directly. That's it. It's not just a protection plan, it's peace of mind. Get a free quote by calling 800-416-6522 or visit carshield.com. That's 800-416-6522 or carshield.com to get your free quote.
As prosecutors prepared to retry Booker T. Hillary for the murder of Marlene Miller, they discovered new forensic evidence: microscopic paint particles in the victim's home encased in cotton. But in 1962, at the time of the original trial, the technology to identify these particles didn't exist. But where did these paintballs come from? For answers, investigators looked once more inside Booker Hillary's 1953 Plymouth automobile. Surprisingly, it was still in police custody after all those years. In the forensic lab, scientists noticed that the ceiling of the passenger compartment was lined with a cotton material, and the material had been painted with a blue spray paint.
And pulling some of the headliner off and examining it under the microscope, I realized that there were millions of these things that had been manufactured by him and spraying the headliner. And they were still there. It was kind of like they were there for someone to find, and I was lucky enough to be the one that found them.
Scientists vacuumed the inside of Hillary's car and analyzed the trace evidence. They found thousands of paint particles identical in color, shape, and chemical makeup to those found in Marlene Miller's home.
The elemental composition is identical. The infrared spectrum showing the molecular composition is identical. They both use Prussian blue.
We couldn't say that it came from the same spray can. We're just saying, how did they get there? They're so unusual in shape. Why are they in both places?
Investigators suspected that Booker Hillary spray painted the interior roof of his car. As he did, The round paint particles attached to the cotton fibers and remained cylindrical as they dried. Driving around town, when Hillary hit a bump in the road, the microscopic particles shed, landing on his clothing and in his hair.
These paintballs just followed him around like a virus, and he didn't know they were there.
Prosecutors believe that when Hillary entered Marlene's home on the night of her murder, those microscopic paint particles dropped onto the Millers' living room floor.
He became literally a walking trace evidence factory.
This evidence placed Booker Hillary inside Marlene's home.
We had everything else outside and a tenth of a mile away, but the paintballs put him in the house. That's how important they are.
In 1986, based on this new forensic evidence, Booker T. Hillary was tried and convicted once again for the murder of 15-year-old Marlene Miller. He was sentenced to the maximum penalty allowed, 25 years to life, although the judge made it clear that he would have imposed the death penalty if he had been permitted by law to do so. Ironically, it was Booker Hillary himself who handed investigators the forensic evidence used to convict him. Local authorities had tried to sell his car shortly after his first conviction in the 1960s, but Hillary wouldn't allow it.
He in turn filed a motion in federal court suing the county to stop him from getting rid of the car. He dismissed the case and we decided not to sell it. And thank you, Mr. Hillary.
Had he have not saved the car for us, I would have never known where these particles came from.
Investigators credit the foresight of the late Art Thomas, the Kings County Chief Criminal Deputy, who in 1962 insisted that Marlene's mother vacuumed the living room floor where the abduction took place. He kept that trace evidence in police custody.
That was the key to it, and I know Art knew that was the key to putting him in the house back then. He was an investigator, and he was a damn good cop.
We can do what some people think can only be done in works of fiction. We are, I believe, the living embodiment of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Thorndike and some of these kinds of people, and that we can take this little speck of evidence and literally make it speak.
The new CNN original series Diana introduces viewers to the person behind the princess and reveals a life more complicated and fascinating than the world knew. Diana, Sundays at 9 on CNN.